Hey everyone, welcome back to WCB Jazz Vinyl Collector. I know that it's been, a couple of weeks maybe since my last video. Don't worry, I do intend to make more videos. It's just a combination of work being crazy, as well as a couple of other things that I've had going on, and some of that I'll get into. So what I want to do with this video is maybe a little bit different than probably a lot of videos. I want to kind of tell you about what I'm excited about in terms of some new stuff that I've had come in. A lot of this stuff is either new releases or reissues that I've had come in. I'm not going to get that much into detail, unfortunately, in this video. We'll leave that for a later video, but I wanted to at least put a few things on your radar, again, that I'm excited about. Maybe you'll be excited about as well, and maybe you'll consider looking into previewing, maybe even ordering. All right, so the first thing that I want to bring up, again, this is just like super quick, right? I'm not going to get into to comparisons or details, although I do intend to do a shootout with this particular release. So this is the box set, Sonny Rollins Go West, the Contemporary Records albums. So there are 3 albums in here, and I'll show them to you really quick just in a second. But this is the Craft Records acoustic sounds partnership, apparently, that they're doing for the Contemporary series. It's like really complicated how sometimes some of these partnerships go. But in any event, I've talked about some of the other Craft Recordings releases of Contemporary Record stuff on this channel in the past. I think some of it has been Art Pepper. I'm trying to think, Leroy, who did I do? Was it Leroy Jenkins? Was it maybe the... Oh gosh, probably Hampton Hawes, like, you know, some different stuff. And here's the thing, is that this series is really, really solid. And so I had to get this, had to compare it to my originals. Actually, the very interesting thing about this as well is that even though, okay, Go West is in here, I've had other editions of that. I have an original mono in fantastic shape, but what drew me into this was it's a stereo presentation. So first of all, this is a super cool box, kind of going for like a leather, maybe even like snakeskin texture or something like that. It's got the obi, which, you know, I can always do without. But anyway, I just kind of wanted to show you a couple of things. So one, you know, obviously you get Sonny Rollins, right, Way Out West in stereo. You also get Sonny Rollins and the Contemporary Leaders, which is this title here. And then you get Sonny Rollins alternate takes from Contemporary. So presumably these were sessions that were supposed to make one of the other 2 albums and didn't. So I actually have not fully, dived into this box set just yet. But again, I wanted to bring it to your attention. And one thing I also wanted to bring up is just the interior. I mean, it's just like super nice, right? Like, look at this kind of, I don't know what extent it's visible. But super nice. You got this little booklet right here that's like kind of, inset in here. I mean, it's nice. So anyway, I did spring for this, and I intend to do some type of shootout, again, to the extent that I have this content. Well, I do have the 2 albums in their original form, so I very likely will do a shootout. What I will say is the one disc that I've put on so far, because I've had so little time to spin records, is the Way Out West in stereo, and man, it sounds really nice. So super excited about diving into this box set a little bit further. All right, the next thing I want to bring up is what I think is either reissues or maybe releases on vinyl for the first time. I think some of these are reissues, but in any event, what I sort of discovered is that Muriel Grossman, who's a fantastic tenor saxophone player, sort of in that European modern scene, but playing what I would say traditionally is considered like spiritual jazz, or at least advised by that genre, or, you know, John Coltrane, Pharoah Sanders, etc. So she has put out, again, either reissues or released on vinyl for the first time, I'm not entirely sure, but a number of her albums. And so I was able to get her Union album, as well as Natural Time. And then the third one that I was able to get is Universal Code. So I'm pretty excited. Some of this is double disc, and I love her work. I have one other title from her, and it's kind of hard stuff to get. You typically have to order it from Europe, and even just each of these 3 albums, I think, were put out in like 3 different countries. So her stuff doesn't always get the widest distribution, and it's always in demand. I would suggest kind of looking up her stuff on, either Bandcamp or somewhere else and seeing if you can, well, obviously preview it and see if you like it. But I was very excited that some of this stuff was even being, again, put out on vinyl, made available again, because otherwise it wasn't, or like earlier releases were becoming too expensive. So very excited again about Muriel Grossman, and haven't had time to listen to these. I only just got these in the other day, but I'm super excited. All right, so moving right along to a few other releases that I recently got in, the first one, I think this is going to interest a lot of folks. So this is Helen Merrill on MRC, right? So this is her, if you're going to try to find this on original pressing of this on MRC, it's going to cost you many, many hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars, especially in good shape. This is a very sought after album, and Analog Productions put this out a while back. Just came back in print. So you can go over to Acoustic Sound's website and you can pick this up for the regular retail price. Really, really nice. This is one of those two that there's a few titles on MRC similar to this. One's by Dinah Washington. I think, is there one by Sarah Vaughan too? There's at least one by Dinah Washington, and then this by Helen Merrill, where it's like the Clifford Brown like quartet or quintet or something that's supporting her. And so that's pretty cool. You get to hear Clifford Brown possibly in a situation or format that you haven't heard him before. So anyway, that title back in print on Acoustic Sounds, I would encourage you to check it out. I was excited to get it in. So the next title that I wanted to bring up, again, super briefly, probably we'll do a video on this in more in depth later. So I mentioned that Vinyl Me Please was putting out some really exciting titles, and I put that video out probably 2 months ago. Well, guess what? Some of those titles have come out, and one of those titles is the Thelonious Monk Septet. This is on Riverside. This is a stereo edition. I know that a lot of people are nervous about the stereo edition because it is a completely different sort of sound and, I guess, presentation than the monos, right? So they use different microphones, and it does sound different. In fact, the little bit of this that I know is that the mono recording was set up, I would say, as usual, as Riverside would normally record, and the stereo microphones, they were trying to get out of the way, and so they hung them from the ceiling. So not everybody likes the presentation. However, interestingly enough, everyone who I've heard who has listened to this presentation, this stereo edition by Vinyl Me Please, has been like really excited about it. So I have spun it once, actually I think just one side so far, and it sounded good to me. I need to put a little bit more time into it in order to further develop an opinion, but that one is out. This next one that I want to talk about, so I've talked about the BBE, or Barely Breaking Even label, BBE, and they have a J-Jazz series, or Japanese jazz series. Their latest edition, and sorry for the glare, is by Takeo Moriyama, and this is Live at Lovely. So this is a live album. This is the latest in the series. I'm a completist with their J-Jazz series, so I had to get it, and it just came in. It's actually from 1990. I don't own many recordings, especially in terms of jazz, that were recorded that late, but this is really exciting stuff, and if you're into J-Jazz, if you're into this BBE series like I am, I think that you will enjoy it. All right, so just two more things, or two more like kind of topics that I wanted to discuss before we close things out. And the first of the two, I'm really excited about this. So I haven't listened to it yet. It's a double disc, and it is by Andy Hay, and it is called Children of the Sun. Now, my guess is for most folks out there, this is not going to be familiar. And that's nothing against Andy Hay. He's on the UK jazz scene. Actually, I think he's based in Wales, I want to say. He's played with Nat Birchall, who's very much a part of that scene as well. He also has done a lot of his own stuff as well. So the interesting thing about his releases is a couple of things. One is that his music is phenomenal. It just really is. It's very like emotional, very like I don't know. There's just a lot that goes on in his music, and I get a lot of energy from it. I encourage everyone to go to Bandcamp and check out Andy Hay. That's Hay. And so the other thing, though, is that in each of his releases, at least recently, he has hand painted his album covers. So this is hand painted. This is a like custom, one of a kind, hand painted album cover and like look at how gorgeous this thing is. So he often does sort of handmade notes as well as additional like painted kind of cards and things that he inserts into it. Again, this is a double disc, so there's a lot of content. I know that it's hard to get this stuff from the UK. He does self-release, I believe, so it's not like you can get this from the distributor. You really are having to get it from the source. But what I would say is it's just been incredibly worthwhile, and the guy seems super nice. I've had like a couple of like, minimal interactions with him on Instagram because he's pretty active there. So go check him out there and follow his stuff because I think it's phenomenal. Not that many people know about this, and I even hesitate to make a video about it because I want to make sure that I get his next album because he doesn't make that many of them. Or he doesn't, he doesn't make many, pressing quantity, right, is limited for his albums. So anyway, check that one out. All right, so final topic. One of the reasons why it's been several weeks since I've made a video is because of an activity I got up to, last weekend, the weekend before. When was it? I don't even know. It was 2 weeks ago. And that is I traveled to New York City to co-host a radio show called Labeled on WKCR. And the purpose of the show was to highlight Riverside Records, basically like an overview of the label and play really highlights, like needle drop highlights of the label. So the radio program was 5 hours long. We had about 3.5 hours worth of music. We had an hour and a half of talking. The hosts of the label are actually the founders and producers of JMI Recordings. So you have Jay Cohn and Steve Mandel, aka Sugar Steve. And they normally do this program themselves, but they invited me to come along and join them on the topic of Riverside. And so I was fortunate to be able to curate a playlist, again, 3.5 hours worth, of Riverside stuff. So we played all original pressing vinyl, and I carted it all to New York. And we played it over the course of those 5 hours, and it was a phenomenal time. But again, the reason why I wasn't able to make videos is because it's not like I have a day job, I go into the office. I work at like a big company. And so it's just difficult to find time. And so on any given night, I can either make a video or I can listen to music or I can start curating a playlist. And by the way, curating a playlist means playing like 70 records and trying to find the songs that you want to include. So that's the reason why it's been a little while, but it was a phenomenal time. And I'd love to make a separate video, maybe about some of that experience, or even point folks to a audio recording. So as I continue to think about that, the one thing that I do want to leave you with is actually JMI Recordings. So again, these are the co-founders of the label, or the ones who generally host the show and who invited me. And here's the thing: like, I'm not, I don't mean to be an advertisement. However, last year, one of my favorite albums of the entire year in terms of new music, and I said this last year, way before any of this happened, was Sasha Berliner's Onyx. And I stand by that. That was a phenomenal, phenomenal album. And so now I'm paying attention to every single release that they put out because it's just super stellar quality. They're finding a lot of really interesting artists, both new and old. So, good example, right? Sasha Berliner, relatively young artist, hasn't put out that much music, but they've put out an album by David Murray, a double disc, 45 RPM this year, and I believe that there's another one coming by David Murray, and he's like, think about sort of living legend in the free jazz space. He's one of them. So they're really and actually I think on that album I want to say that Questlove is on it as well. So super interesting stuff that they are putting out, and I wanted to just show again a couple of albums that I'm excited about that I haven't had the opportunity to listen to because they came in today. So one is by Antero Sievert, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, and it's called Dear Bossa. So I actually have 2 albums that Antero put out early in the JMI Recordings catalog, and they were excellent, and I'm really excited about this one. I want to say this is a little bit larger format, but very excited about this one. I mentioned David Murray and the double disc 45 RPM pressing, and that is what this is. It's titled Sun, and so I'm excited to dig into that. All right, and this next one is by, I think it's credited to Doyle Bramhall II, or at least he's appearing there first, but you also have DJ Harrison and Daru Jones. This is essentially a 45 RPM single, but you have an A side and a B side, and I'm excited to dig into this one as well. I'm probably going to do some type of more focused video on the label because I think they have a lot of interesting stuff. I know I've mentioned some of them in the past. Again, I talked to you about Sasha Berliner's Onyx. And I mean, I think that's a great place to start. So my understanding is that their catalog is being digitized and made available either for streaming or at least for purchase of digital tracks, whereas before you kind of had to hunt their stuff down directly from the JMI Recordings website. And so it seems like they're getting into some of these other channels, which I think is going to help spread the word about their music. Like I said, they're doing really, really interesting stuff. So that's kind of the purpose for this video. Like, you know, I wish that I had time even leading up to now to do something that was a little bit more in depth on some of these individual recordings, but I at least wanted to touch base and talk to you about what I was excited about because I kind of got like all this stuff in just in the last couple of days. And so I've got just a listening backlog, which is a good way to be. So anyway, stay tuned for some of those future videos. I would appreciate it. Also hit subscribe and you know, keep up to date on some of these videos that I'm posting. So thanks very much for sticking with me. I'll see you next time.